What's history's best example of that escalated quickly? The fire of London. 1 second it's just some idiot burning a batch of bread, then the bakery is on fire, then the entire street, then the entire city. A long time ago in China, a captain was leading his men to their new posting. Unfortunately, heavy rain and flooding meant they were going to be late. He asked one of his men, "Woo, what's the penalty for lateness?" "Exactly, it's death, Captain." "I see. And what's the penalty for taking up arms against the government?" So began the Zhejiang uprising of 209 BC, because of rain. The War of Jenkins' Ear. One day a British smuggler gets his ear chopped off by some Spanish patrol. 8 years later he finally brings it back to Britain and shows it to Parliament, and then all of a sudden war with Spain. Over 25,000 casualties, and then merges with the War of Austrian Succession. Not that quickly, but still interesting. Taping rebellion. Some dude fails several times the examinations to get a job as a civil servant in 1837. Feels sick for a few days, then says he's had a vision and he's Jesus' brother, with a duty to overthrow the Qing dynasty. In 1843, he founds his sect. In 1851, 10,000 of his followers defeat the government soldiers. This eventually leads to a 14-year-long war, and 20-30 million casualties. History major. I just wanted to point out that a huge following of his movement was land reform. Most of the peasants didn't give a flying frick if he was Jesus' little bro or not. He had an amazing land reform system that, if I recall correctly, was adopted too late by the Qing, which is how he drew most of the base of his power. The Rwandan genocide. 1 million people killed in around 100 days. The Arab Spring. Man in Tunisia lights himself on fire to protest the government. 5 years later and we have seen 5 civil wars, 3 revolutions, hundreds of thousands if not millions dead, nearly 20 million refugees, and the largest wave of global terrorism in modern history. Also, you didn't even mention the craziest part. It started when some guy's unlicensed fruit stand was shut down. All that stuff belongs to Germany, which just had war declared on by Britain, because Britain was friends with Belgium, who was being trespassed by Germany in order to get to France to kick France's butt, because France was friends with Russia, who was getting ready to kick Austria's butt, because Austria was getting ready to kick Serbia's butt, because someone from Serbia shot the leader of Austria's butt. Actually, he shot him in the head. And Britain is currently friends with Japan, so you know what that means. MP3 is an audio file format. MP4 is an audio and video file format. The MP5 is a submachine gun. 1515. Martin Luther teaches a class on the Epistle to the Romans. 1524. German Peasants' War, aka the largest popular uprising in European history to that date. In 1859, the US and UK almost went to war because one farmer shot the trespassing pig of another farmer. The British sent 2,000 troops and warships after the Americans sent infantry and artillery under the command of one George Pickett, who swore that he would make a Bunker Hill out of it. A British admiral was ordered to land troops and engage the Americans. He refused to do so. This all took place without the respective governments in London and Washington even knowing about it, and when word reached them about what was taking place, they immediately sought to resolve the issue. In 1945, the first nuclear bombs dropped on Japan. A little over 10 years later, we had enough nukes to destroy the world, and the peace was kept through mutual assured destruction. Like crap, we have barely enough uranium for this bomb. Oh, we can use plutonium for the other. Hey guys, check out how fast we can make plutonium. Whoops, now America has 10,000 nuclear weapons. The spread of Islam. Founded in 610, in 100 years they would control everything from Spain, North Africa, all of Arabia, all of the Middle East and former Persian holdings, and the Indus region of India. It slowed down for a while after that, but by 1450 Islam had spread to nearly all of the Imperial Eastern Roman territories, all of northern India and Indonesia, and everything down to the equator in Africa. Much of that slow period is referred to as their golden age. The space race. 1957. Russia puts the first artificial satellite into space. 1971. Dudes riding dune buggies and playing golf on the moon. The 12th of April, 1961, a guy goes to space for an hour and a bit in a capsule that we get rid of. The 12th of April, 1981, we send 2 guys to space in a plane that can seat 7 for 3 days, and we can use the plane again. The collapse of the Berlin Wall. Basically, some East German official mistakenly said, "Oh, you can cross now." Thousands of people started doing so even though they weren't supposed to be allowed. But when it came to it, no one would order the soldiers to start shooting everyone. So thousands pushed their way through, and then thousands more started physically tearing it down from both sides. Kind of symbolic of the nearly as quick collapse of the rest of the Iron Curtain. Irish nationalism in 1916 went from a majority of the population wanting home rule achieved peacefully to the majority wanting full independence through any means over the space of a few weeks. Due, in no small part, to the brutality with which the British government dealt with those involved in the Easter Rising. Seems that Vesuvius is having a bit of a rumble today. Citizen of Pompeii, 79 AD. One of my favorite comedians has a good example. I think lazy writing is saying one thing led to another. Like this: Adolf Hitler was rejected from art school as a young boy. One thing led to another and the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the sovereign nation of Japan. Some guy didn't like another guy's art. Yada yada yada. Japan is missing 2 cities now. The 5th of June, 1944. No allies on the Normandy beach. The 6th of June, 1944. 160k soldiers on Normandy beach. February 1917, Russian women demand the Tsar provide more bread for the people. April 1917, Germans bring Lenin via train back to Russia. November 1917, October Revolution begins. Monarchy to communism in less time than the gestation period of a baby. Well, there was also the February Revolution that effectively deposed the Tsar, making the country a nominally constitutional monarchy. So, everyone's saying stuff like World War I, but there was a rebellion in China called the Rebellion of the Seven States. Let's get a little bit of Chinese history out of the way here. In this time period, China was split into multiple states, each ruled by a prince, who was one of the emperor's relatives. However, there was a central government that sort of controlled it all, ruled by the emperor. Now, one of these states, Wu, controlled by the emperor's cousin, once removed Liu Pai. This state of Wu was growing powerful and rich, so the emperor had sort of a shaky relationship with his cousin. So the emperor was playing an ancient Chinese board game with Liu Pai's son, when crap got intense over the match and the emperor chucks the board at the son, killing him. Google it if you don't believe me. Well, what do you know? Liu Pai now hates the emperor with a passion. Our dear emperor wants the central government to be powerful, and in order to stifle the increasing power of the states, he carves out land from multiple princes. They don't really like that. Liu Pai uses as an excuse, and convinces 7 of the states to go into a full-on rebellion against the emperor. However, it burned fiercely at the start, but within 3 months the rebellion got defeated. February Revolution. The 8th of March, our calendar. International Women's Day march turns into a huge anti-monarchy protest. The 12th of March, most of the army crosses sides. The 15th of March, Tsar quits his job. 1-0 to the revolutionaries. The Honeybee War. There is a border dispute between Iowa and Missouri where both states claim a 2-mile area near the border. One day Missouri sends a tax collector to a town in this area and he is chased off by a mob. Before leaving though, he steals a few beehives. A bunch of Iowans then invade Missouri and kidnap a sheriff, and soon both states' militias are called in and spend the next few months sitting on the border waiting for the other side to do something. What makes it even better is the militias didn't even have real weapons, just what they brought from home. In the ranks were to be found men armed with blunderbusses, flintlocks, and quaint old ancestral swords that had probably adorned the walls for many generations. One private carried a plow halter over his shoulder by means of a log chain. Another had an old-fashioned sausage stuffer for a weapon, while a third shouldered a sheet iron sword about 6 feet long. Mongolian Empire. First some dude called Genghis Khan shows up and next thing you know a huge chunk of Asia is kissing his boot. Not only that, Genghis Khan was supposed to be killed as a child. After the death of his father, some of his enemies wanted him dead, but because he was a child, He was spared his life and he went on to conquer all of Asia. The Blitz on London. A German bomber got lost and bombed central London. The RAF sent several bombers to hit German cities. Germany sent back twice as many. Britain did the same, and it all went downhill. You could say that for the bombing campaigns throughout World War II. US carrier with a dozen bombers flies to Japan and hits a few targets and then some don't even make it back. Years later, most of Japan is destroyed. Humans can't fly, pretty much everyone, for countless centuries up until somewhere in the 18th century. That's not flying, that's floating. Pretty much everyone from then to the 20th century. Holy crap, I'm flying. Some guy in the 20th century. I'm on the freaking moon. Some guy in the 20th century. Maybe not fast, but Ivan the Terrible, Tsar of Russia, gets mad at his daughter-in-law over her dress, beats her, possibly causes a miscarriage. Ivan's second son, also Ivan, gets mad, attacks daddy. Daddy kills him. Also Ivan now dead. When Ivan dies, the throne goes to his crappy son Fyodor, who dies childless, ending a 700-year-old dynasty and spurring on the time of trouble, during which time a third of the population died, mostly due to famine. Not exactly a quick escalation, but going from you're not wearing that dress to millions dead is a heck of a ride. The story of Vernon, Florida, aka Nub City. The legend goes that sometime in the early 1950s an insurance claim was made on a lost limb, and a $1,000 payout was made. By the mid-1960s at least 50 of Vernon's 700 residents had joined the Nub Club by way of farming accidents, garage mishaps, hunting incidents, and so on. This one small town would account for 2/3 of all claims in the nation. Some would saw off limbs, but most happened by way of shotgun blasts. A trend of intentionally maiming yourself for the insurance payout. Talk about escalation. When that Serbian dude killed the archduke, next thing you know, Europe is acting a fool. There had been a lot of political tension leading up to that point though. The assassination was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's winter in Portland. I was at a bar until closing time with some friends. Once last call was over, probably 30 or so of us that were still there stumble outside to find that it's been snowing a bunch. We proceed to have an impromptu snowball fight, and it's one of those great random moments in life that you'll remember forever. Anyways, everyone's drunk and the snowballs start getting thrown harder and harder. Eventually someone hits someone else with a chunk of ice. Before you know it, an all-out brawl has started in the middle of the street. A massive street fight is happening. Some giant Samoan guy nicknamed Moose is just pummeling the crap out of one of my friends. His jacket is torn to shreds. Another friend heads to his car and grabs a flashlight out of his trunk and beats the Moose in the back until my friend can get away. But then I crap you not, a car pulls up and a guy jumps out and asks me what side am I on. He jumps in and starts fighting people with no hesitation. Shortly after we hear police sirens in the distance, so my friends and I all take off to our car. But since it's been snowing, we're stuck. So we get out and start rocking the car back and forth until we get unstuck, pile in and take off before the cops got there. A group of buttholes hijacked some planes and crashed them. Super tragic stuff. Almost overnight. Well, by the time aircraft were allowed to fly again, everything associated with air travel was turned upside down. No more walking your loved ones to their gate, waiting and watching planes land trying to guess which one was carrying the person you were picking up. Understanding that full body groping and a lack of liquid more than 2 ounces was necessary for everyone's survival. Oh yeah, and for those who weren't around didn't fly, the fact that it became normal to see the National Guard standing around with M16s in airports kinda sucked. We, the non-super rich, will never have a truly pleasant flying experience again. It's not the biggest impact ever, but Leicester City escalated pretty dang fast. From not being in the Premier League, to barely staying in the league, to winning the whole dang thing. That was fun to watch happen. The US nuked a country once. Next thing we know, they become known for technology and pee. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.